All right, our guest today is Chris Brogan. Chris is the New York Times best-selling author of 9 books, including Find Your Writing Voice. He's also the CEO of Owner Media Group, where he teaches strategy and skills for modern businesses. So Chris, tell us about your background. How'd you get started as a writer and blogger?
It's an interesting question because I started blogging back in 1998 when it was called journaling. There wasn't really any blogging software back then. So the thing I was using was sort of a WYSIWYG visual editor type thing for website design. And I was using what was essentially like an Excel spreadsheet. So on the left was the date, on the right was the text. And every day I would publish. And so then I would cut that out, paste it down one more cell, so to speak, like in a spreadsheet, and then type into the next one, right? So it was like so manual, so mechanic, and it was physically tricky to put it together, and no one was reading blogs back then. So I always tell people, it took me 8 years to get my first 100 readers. And they're always like, what? And I say, well, first off, no one was reading it back then. No one knew to go to the web to look for a blog. I mean, people barely went to the web to look for web pages. So it was kind of an uphill battle. But what was fun about it, or what got me into it, was I didn't have a gatekeeper anymore. I could publish whatever the heck I felt like, and that felt very freeing. Now, I did kind of what anyone does in that circumstance. I wrote garbage for a long time until I finally learned to write something that might be appealing to humans who have interests and needs.
Gotcha. So, I mean, you have this book called Find Your Writing Voice, and you talk about the importance of that, of actually finding, a unique way to share your message that really resonates with your audience. So how do people go about doing that? Is it just basically trial and error?
It's a mix of that, but I always tell people that the most basic and boring advice about this: you have to write a lot and you have to read a lot. And I find that people are usually doing one or the other. They read a lot and they never write, or they write a lot but they've never read, so they write stuff that other people have talked about or said in the same way. I find that a lot of people who are consumers of a lot of content but that don't write a lot, they copy other people's expressions all the time. So there's a lot of people kind of mimicking Find Your Why, or Crush It, or whatever they've read that they thought was great. They just use all of those phrases in their book. And I think you're just cloning. You're a poor clone of something else that's already happened. And so it becomes important to practice writing, because you learn how to turn a different phrase. You learn how to really put your own angle on it. The other thing is that a lot of times we write from our emotions of being worried that someone's going to think we're not smart enough. So we write as if we're writing to some professor, or we're writing, some paper that's going to get us hired into a job. So we try to use grandiose words and phrases that actually don't typically sit in our vocabulary, and it shows, and it's sort of smelly. It's like when you make your kids dress up for a wedding, and they have that crappy suit that you bought them that doesn't fit and they don't like and they don't want to wear, and sneakers. That's what your writing looks like when you really aren't comfortable in it. And so I'm trying to help people dress in their own style, so to speak, in their words.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And I know you talk about, like writing for business, right? And why most businesses, most entrepreneurs should be writers. Why is that? And why has writing become such a powerful medium to grow a business today?
Well, we're in a world where we use our phones to look stuff up all the time, and good content begets a little bit more attention and whatnot. And if the other guy just has a bunch of ads and you have really informative information on how to do something with the products and services and the space that you're in, you're going to earn a lot more attention than the other guy. This fits any type of business. If you're a lobster vendor in the city, you could talk about all the process around how you get your lobsters out, how to prepare it, first time lobster cooking for people who are afraid of lobsters. There's all these things you can write. And if the other guy just goes, lobster's $4 a pound, it's not going to really work out so well for that person per se. I think that the opportunity to write as part of your business, the opportunity to create interesting and useful content, is to be discovered more by Google search and that sort of a thing. And also to have the opportunity to share a little bit about your perspective and the way you see the world, insofar as we buy from people we like, is an old sentiment, and it's fairly true. And so if you had a choice between some very lackluster person and someone that you felt was kind of like you, or the kind of person you'd want to hang around, you kind of go with B. Now, it doesn't apply to everything. If you have a little hamburger stand on the corner, maybe no one cares. But I was just today, this is an example from today, I'm looking across at this pizzeria that I was waiting outside of for nothing. It was coming soon. And what do you think it was? The picture says coming soon, blah, blah, pizzeria. And down below is a picture of a pizza. And I thought, well, I guess this is to demonstrate that there will be pizza inside this place called something pizzeria. I thought, what 1,000 more interesting graphics could you put underneath the coming soon sign that would make us want to know what was coming? Coming soon, pizzeria, and then guns and cars, or I don't know. I was thinking there's got to be something much more interesting that they could do with that little graphical space than show me a pizza, because I'm pretty sure I know that a pizzeria will have pizza.
Right, totally. So it's kind of like the obvious, right? You've got to communicate something different about you and your business than what everyone else is doing. But how do you do that today? I mean, I feel like there's so many blogs and so many writers. Like, is the internet just kind of saturated with too much blog posts these days?
It's true about everything, though. There's so many of everything. And so some stuff stands out because we like it more. Some stuff stands out because we have an experience with it. Some stuff stands out because we have a personal experience that it was the right product or the right service or whatever we needed. Take food, right? We have our favorite restaurants and we have restaurants we hate. As much as people like to crap on a place like McDonald's, a bunch of things about a McDonald's. On the average, it's going to be clean. On the average, the food is going to taste a very specific way that McDonald's taste. It's going to come out very fast, and there will be no variation. A quarter pounder with cheese is going to be the same almost all over the whole planet. And so that's something to hang your hat on. So that's what they hang their hat on. If we decide that that's not how we want to represent our business, we have to think, what's the detail? What's the fact that we want it to be really the most true about? Yeti makes mugs and thermoses and things like this. I love the Yeti thermos commercial right now because they show an Olympic archer shooting a arrow through a Coleman thermos and it falling down to the ground. And then the arrow hits the side of the Yeti one and nothing happens except the Yeti one just falls over undamaged. And I thought, now there's a way to demonstrate, we are way more durable than a Coleman thermos. I was like, okay, I guess durable is something we want in a thermos. So we've got to be looking for that, like what, differentiating factors, what people call it or whatever. But I find that a lot of people, especially in their writing, they just write like everything that everyone else has already been saying. You've got to do it different, and not different to be weird, different to be so clear on what it is that changes your life for the world.
Gotcha. So, I mean, that's a common theme in any business, right? It's like you have to find that unique selling proposition, that thing that makes your business, your product different than everyone else. But I mean, I feel like a lot of businesses these days aren't that different. So how do you find that differentiating factor?
First off, if you're not all that different, then that's a really depressing sales point, right? I guess there's always something that's going to make you different. The way I sell my business is that it's not so gussied up and dressed up. It's not perfect. It's very intentionally a lot more real to life, a lot more organic feeling. You never see me kicking my shoes off at a beach next to a bunch of palm trees telling you that my Lamborghini next to my library is the way of the future, right? And mine is, you could be a regular schmo and actually have the life that you want to run. And I would say that you've always got to find it. If someone says my business isn't all that different, they haven't tried hard enough, because you could be a popcorn stand and be different. I have a pizza place down the street. I have a pizza place across the street. One is every city's pizza place everywhere in America. And the other one sells these great things they have a stone oven that they've built. You can watch the pizza go in. Everything in it's organic and handmade and blah, blah, blah. And from little tiny farms. And I don't know, the chickens wear pants all day until they get made into food. So that's as basic as a pizza. They made it really different. So if you're saying my business isn't different, that means you didn't work hard enough at it. Like, you didn't think about it. But again, not different for different sake. What's the piece of your customer's puzzle that you're going to solve in a better way? That's always what to look for. So in my case, for instance, I sell online courses. My courses don't cost as much as anyone else's. So I point that out. They're not as costly. I said, but they're also full of only actionable material, because a lot of people want to show you all their theories and you could do this. And what about this? Mine are like, do this and then that, and then expect this result. And that way, that's how I differentiate mine. There's thousands of online courses. Mine are said by someone who's done the same thing you're looking to do, and that's going to give you the same result you're looking to have.
Gotcha. So we talked a lot about market research recently on the show. How do you go about doing market research, especially if it comes to things like blog posts and finding that differentiating factor that's going to resonate with your audience?
None at all. I would be the antithesis of market research. And it's not that market research is good or bad. It's just it's a great way for people to procrastinate. I find that there's a lot of people out there who justify their lack of delivery by how much market research they still have yet to do. I think the best market research in the world is putting the product in front of someone and someone doesn't buy it. You go, oh, why didn't you buy it? And finding out from there. I think a lot of market research, quote unquote, is going around gathering up tables and facts from other people's tables and facts from other people's research. And I think it's not really indicative of anything, and studies prove, we say this all the time, studies say this, right? It almost is never true. When you look at results, it's always different. I cannot trust Rotten Tomatoes movie ratings because half of the movies they hate, I love. And half of the movies they think are the best movie in the world, I hate. So I don't quite get it, except that I think movie critics are really full of themselves. And I think that they think that they're turning in some kind of helpful review by being very artistic about it and all, but they get it wrong all the time. Critics hate the Fast and the Furious movies, and those things always sell well over $1 billion worldwide because some amount of human beings want to just see a bunch of people in cars chase each other around exotic locations. And some number of those people, for what reason I don't know, think Vin Diesel is interesting. And to me, he's not any different than I Am Groot. He says a few words through clenched teeth throughout all those movies. But I think that's why they appeal worldwide, because it doesn't matter what he's saying. No one goes to those movies for the dialogue. And so that's how it turns out. So to me, market research is looking for the commonality of a bunch of common experiences, when what I want to do is deliver something that my buyer goes, oh, that's interesting. So when I work with the companies I work with, like eBay or Staples, Workfront, some of the big companies that I have the opportunity to work with, I'm looking for what can we do that's really interesting, not what did research tell us might be an effective solution. Because to me, 4 out of 5 dentists are boring as hell.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's great. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is, you want to just try new things, try new products, try new offers, try new ideas, and just see what resonates with your audience. So instead of spending all this time analyzing and board meetings and getting research, you're really just going out there, launching something and getting feedback from your actual audience to figure out what they actually want to buy.
There's a lot of times where there's a good reason for research. I'd really love for people who are going to put food in my body to know that it is or isn't going to kill me when I have it. There's a lot of good things like that. But there's a lot of times where it's just not for any great value to me. Like, I don't see why, we did a lot of intense studies and we figured you like blue more than red. Who gives a rat's ass? I just want the product. So I find that one of the things I say to people a lot is I say, look, the biggest difference between me and you, I'm very successful because I take 100 shots at something. And if 2 of them hit, I have 2 more than you because you just didn't do anything. And that means I had 98 failures. And that's pretty accurate to my business success. I've done lots more failing than I've done winning, but I do enough winning to be able to fight another day. And I think that so many people come up with reasons why not to try or do anything. That's why I'm kind of anti-market research, because to me, it's just another way to procrastinate.
Gotcha. So what do you say to folks who are kind of like paralyzed by fear and they have like analysis paralysis?
Stop it. Go do something. Put something out there. It'd be so much better to learn how bad you are than to worry how bad you are. You know what I mean? Because then you can do something about it. There's just so many people out there who get stuck in that mode. And I just ask them how that's working for them. How many years have you not done what you said you were going to do? Well, I really have always wanted to write a book, but I'm not sure how it's going to go. Publish it, and then you'll find out it didn't go well. My first book was a New York Times bestseller, a Wall Street Journal bestseller, an Inc. magazine, something of the year. Like, it won a crap ton of awards. I'll just say that. My other 8 books won no awards. My other 8 books barely sold anything like the first one. The only other book out of the 9 I've written so far that sold immensely was Google Plus for Business, which sounds like the worst, most boring book in the world, and it is. So how do you know, right? You don't know. And so I'm working on my 10th book, and the only way I'm going to know if it's going to work or not is to just finish the darn thing and publish it. It doesn't, worrying that it's not going to sell doesn't finish the book for me. And so I guess to me, it's just a question of calories. Do you want to spend your calories worrying, or do you want to spend your calories trying to figure out what you can do to make it better?
Gotcha. So, but I mean, what do you say to folks then who are like, like discouraged by that, right? Because it's like, they want that clear window. They want that, that straight line to success. They want to know every step along the way.
I say go get a regular job and be a very regular person, because that's what people think is job security, right? But I don't understand what equals job security when one person has control of 100% of your revenue and your time. That's job insecurity, right? That means one person decides if I'm a good or bad person. One person, often for reasons not even related to you. I know a company that I was just doing some work with that had to lay off a whole lot of people. Every single one of the people they laid off was a wonderful, high quality, good working person who in their head is thinking, I'm a really good person. Why did I just lose my job? Had nothing to do with them. It was the marketplace. It was finances, right? So if you want to still be worried, then go get a regular job and get fired by a lot of people. That's fine by me. Success is never a straight line. Success is a really jagged, miserable thing. I have had months as recently as this year where I couldn't pay myself in a certain pay period. And I was like, well, guess I'll have to wait a few weeks. And I guess I'll eat some cans of soup, this year, as successful as I am. And it's because if you're a real entrepreneur, if you're doing the real job, you take risks, you run out of money, you get money. But the thing is, you get to set your schedule, you get to pick your day, you get to pick your clients. And if I want to say no to a lot of people, I can, but it means maybe I don't eat as much. And I don't want to have to say yes to people. My success definition, which is different than people, is to define my success by never saying yes to something I don't want to do. And so that's a choice. If you're sitting around going, man, I just need to eat, I just need to get some ramen noodles, then you don't have the luxury of waiting and worrying. Go out and do the damn work. We put so much more weird mental process around doing entrepreneurial stuff, but the real job of an entrepreneur is to find a need and fill it. That's not what all these people who say they're entrepreneurs are doing. What they really are is unemployed people. Entrepreneurs find a need and fill it. Unemployed people write lots of blog posts about how cool it is to be an entrepreneur.
Right, totally. So, it sounds to me, and this has been my experience as well, is that like the antidote to fear, anxiety, worry, and all that procrastination is just taking action. It's just going out there, trying new things and seeing what sticks.
There is no, the fever gets solved by more cowbell, as the old joke goes. But then the only solution to entrepreneurial challenges is work. And the thing is, that's why Ty Lopez doesn't make commercials like that. He doesn't make commercials to say, man, I work hard. I don't know if he does work hard or not. I have no idea about the gentleman. I just see his commercials about his Lamborghinis and his, acres of land. The people who brag about that stuff are the people who are the least comfortable in their own skin. My most successful, most richest people I know never talk about their wealth. What they talk about is what they could do with it and how they're giving and what kinds of cool things they're putting together in the world. I got to interview Richard Branson one time. He sure never once talked about the fact he owns an island. He talked about how fun it is to have people come and visit and they do cool things together. He talked about kite surfing. He talked about he really does want to make a hotel in space. He just thinks it'd be so cool to be the first person to run a hotel in space. And I thought, man, that's a cool life, right? Like that's the way you want to live. I think that you have to check yourself against that. You have to say, how did he get there? He sold records in London. He exploited a tax loophole that eventually bit his butt, and his parents had to pay an insane fine to cover his butt. And then he went, oh, I guess that's not how you run a business. So he started a new one, right? Branson had so far over 400 businesses launched, and he started with one. And I think all the people that are worried about, well, what if I'm a failure? You're already a failure. The only real question is, what if I can find a way to be a success?
I love it. Very inspiring, man. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Well, where can folks find out more about you and the work that you're up to, man?
What a great question. You can go to chrisbrogan.com, or if for some reason that's too hard to spell, go to owner.media. They're two different websites. But if you grab my newsletter, that's usually the greatest way to start, because then you get a sense of who I am and my typical weekly baloney.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. I really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure.